I never thought betrayal could cut this deep. It wasn't the kind you see in movies, where someone gets caught cheating or lying about money. No, this was different. This was a betrayal of my body, my trust, my very sense of security. For 6 years, I believed I was in a safe, loving relationship with the man I planned to spend my life with. Ethan and I had built a home together. We had 2 beautiful children. We were engaged, planning our wedding for September. My life wasn't perfect, but it was good. Until last year, when everything fell apart. It started with a small burning sensation. At first, I thought it was just irritation from something harmless. But as the days passed, the discomfort turned into pain, and then the lesions appeared. I panicked. Something was wrong. A visit to my doctor confirmed my worst fear, HSV-2, genital herpes. I felt like I had been hit by a truck. How? How could this happen? Ethan and I had been together for years. I had never been unfaithful. I trusted him completely. My first thought was that he had cheated on me. But when I told him, he didn't react the way I expected. He held me as I sobbed, whispering over and over that everything would be okay. That it wasn't a big deal. That we would get through it. He said he had never experienced any symptoms, but if I had it, then he must have it now too. I remember apologizing to him, crying that I never meant to bring this into our lives. And he reassured me, telling me it wasn't my fault. I believed him. For a whole year, I lived with the shame of thinking I had somehow brought this into our relationship. Until a few nights ago, when I saw it. A small lesion. On him. I froze. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. "Ethan," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Why didn't you tell me?" His entire body stiffened. "Why didn't you make a doctor's appointment?" Silence. I swallowed, my throat dry. "Ethan, have you had this before?" He hesitated. Then, barely above a whisper, "Yes." My stomach dropped. I gripped his arm. "How long?" "Nothing." "Answer me, right now." I saw the moment he gave up trying to hide it. He slumped onto the couch, rubbing his face with his hands. "I was diagnosed before we got together," he admitted. For a second, I couldn't breathe. "What?" I was too embarrassed to tell you." His words barely registered. My ears were ringing. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't bad luck. He knew. He knew from the beginning. He knew every time we were intimate. He knew when he proposed. He knew when we planned our wedding. He knew, and he never told me. Everything I believed about our love, our trust, our future, it shattered in an instant. And now I had to decide what to do next. I stared at him, waiting for him to say something, anything, that could make this make sense. But what excuse could there be? What justification could ever undo what he had done? "You knew," I whispered. My voice felt foreign, like it was coming from someone else. "You knew this whole time?" Ethan let out a heavy sigh, running a hand through his hair. "I was going to tell you." I almost laughed. "Was? When?" My voice cracked. "After the wedding? After our 3rd kid? Or were you just going to keep it a secret forever?" His jaw tightened. "I didn't know how to tell you, okay? I was scared. I thought you'd leave me." I shook my head, feeling my stomach churn. "So instead of being honest, you let me believe this was my fault. You let me cry in your arms, apologizing to you. You let me feel dirty, ashamed." My breath hitched as the reality of it all hit me again. He dropped his head into his hands. "I didn't want to lose you." I stared at him in disbelief. "So you decided for me? You decided that I didn't deserve the truth?" His silence was answer enough. I stood up abruptly, my body trembling. I couldn't sit next to him anymore. Couldn't look at him. The walls of our home, felt like they were closing in. This house, this life we built, suddenly felt like a trap. I walked to the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter, trying to steady my breathing. But it wasn't working. Anger, grief, disgust. It was all too much. Behind me, I heard him stand. "Babe, please. Don't call me that." I turned around, my voice sharper than I intended. He flinched. Good. For years, I had trusted this man with everything. My heart, my body, my future. And he had taken all of it for granted. He had taken me for granted. What if it had been something worse? I demanded. What if it was something that could kill me? Would you have told me then? His mouth opened, then shut. No answer. I felt a wave of nausea hit me. My hands were shaking. I couldn't be here. I grabbed my keys off the counter. Where are you going? Away from you. I didn't wait for a response. I walked out the front door, into the cold night air, and drove. I had no destination, no plan. Only one question running through my mind. How do I come back from this? The road ahead blurred as tears filled my eyes, but I didn't stop driving. I didn't even know where I was going. I just needed to be anywhere but home. Home wasn't home anymore. Not after what I had just learned. My hands gripped the steering wheel, so tightly my knuckles turned white. My mind raced, replaying his words over and over. I was too embarrassed to tell you. I didn't want to lose you. He had been afraid of losing me. So instead, he lied to me for years. He let me suffer, let me blame myself, let me trust him with every piece of me, while he kept his biggest secret buried. I thought about our children, about the life we had built together. Could I really just walk away? A part of me wanted to turn back, to pretend this was just a bad dream. But another part, the part that felt like it was gasping for air, knew that pretending wouldn't fix anything. I ended up in a parking lot near a small diner, the neon sign flickering against the dark sky. I parked the car, but didn't get out. Instead, I sat there staring at the lights, my chest rising and falling in uneven breaths. Then my phone buzzed. "Ethan, please come home. We need to talk." I ignored it. A minute later, another message. "Ethan, I love you." I let out a bitter laugh. Love? What a joke. My phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't him. Mia. "Hey, are you okay?" Mia, my best friend. She must have sensed something was off. For a moment, I hesitated. I had kept this all to myself for too long, carrying this weight alone. But I couldn't do it anymore. My fingers hovered over the keyboard before I finally typed out the words that made everything feel real. No. I'm not okay. 20 minutes later, Mia slid into the booth across from me. She took one look at my face and frowned. "Jesus, you look like hell." I let out a dry laugh. "Thanks." She didn't push, just waited. And once I started talking, I couldn't stop. I told her everything. How I found out I had HSV-2 last year. How I had blamed myself. How Ethan had let me believe it was my fault. How he had known this entire time and still let me marry him in my mind, still let me build a life on nothing but lies. When I finished, Maya just stared at me, her hands clenched into fists on the table. "He knew," she finally said, her voice low and dangerous. I nodded. "And he still." She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "That's not just lying, that's manipulation. That's abuse, Olivia." Hearing her say it out loud made my stomach twist. Was it abuse? I had spent so long telling myself Ethan was a good man, that he just made a mistake, that he was scared. But wasn't that exactly what an abuser relied on? The belief that they didn't mean to hurt you. "I don't know what to do," I whispered. Maya reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You don't have to decide tonight, but you do have to face this. And whatever you choose, you don't have to do it alone." Her words cracked something open inside me. For the first time all night, I didn't feel completely lost. But the hardest part was still ahead. I stayed at Mia's place that night. She offered me her bed, but I couldn't sleep. My mind wouldn't stop replaying everything. The moment Ethan admitted the truth, the way my stomach had dropped, the way my entire world had shifted in an instant. At some point, I must have drifted off because I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing. Ethan. I let it ring. Then a text came through. Ethan. Olivia, please. Just come home. Home. The word felt meaningless now. Mia walked in, handing me a cup of coffee. You ready to talk to him? I stared at my phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. I don't know if I even want to talk to him. She sat on the edge of the bed. Then don't. You don't owe him anything. Did I? We had kids together. A life together. Walking away wasn't as simple as just leaving. But could I ever trust him again? Could I ever look at him and not feel sick? I exhaled, forcing myself to stand. I have to go back. Mia gave me a skeptical look, but didn't argue. Fine. But if you need me, I'm one call away. When I walked through the front door, Ethan was already waiting. His face was pale, his eyes red-rimmed like he hadn't slept. I dropped my bag by the door. Talk. He hesitated. Olivia, No. I cut him off. No excuses. No, I was scared, or I didn't know how to tell you. I need you to tell me the truth. Why? His jaw clenched. He looked at the floor, shaking his head. I didn't want to lose you. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. And now you have. His eyes snapped to mine, panic flashing across his face. No, I haven't. We can fix this. I love you. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Do you have any idea what you did to me? My voice shook with rage. Do you know how dirty I felt? How ashamed? I spent a year believing I was the one who ruined us. And you let me. His face crumpled. I'm sorry. Sorry? I shook my head. You chose this. Every single day, you made the choice to lie to me, to betray me, to take away my choice. I love you, he whispered. I felt my stomach twist. No, you don't. Because love wasn't selfish. Love wasn't lying to the person you were supposed to cherish. Love wasn't making decisions that stole their control over their own body. His face hardened. You're really going to throw away everything we've built? I stared at him. You did that, not me. He reached for me, but I stepped back. I don't know if I can forgive this, Ethan. I don't know if I want to. His face fell. And for the first time I saw it, the realization that he had truly lost me. I turned and walked upstairs, leaving him standing there broken. But this time, I wasn't the one who needed to be fixed. I locked the bedroom door behind me and collapsed onto the bed. The weight of everything pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe. This was my life. The life I had built with Ethan. The life I thought was safe. But it had all been a lie. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Mia. Mia, are you okay? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to tell her that I was handling it, that I was strong, but I wasn't okay. And I didn't know if I ever would be again. Me? No, but I will be. I put my phone down and stared at the ceiling. My mind raced through the memories. The way Ethan had looked at me when we first met, the way he held me when I was pregnant with our first child, the way he had comforted me when I thought I had given him the virus. It was all tainted now. I heard him outside the door. He didn't knock, just stood there. I could feel his presence through the wood. Olivia, he said softly. Please talk to me. I closed my eyes. I'll sleep on the couch, he continued. I don't want to lose you. I didn't respond. I couldn't. A few minutes later, I heard him sigh and walk away. I turned onto my side, wrapping my arms around myself. I had always believed love could survive anything. That if two people truly cared for each other, they could overcome any obstacle. But what if love wasn't enough? What if trust was more important? And what if trust, once broken, could never truly be repaired? The next morning, I woke up to the sound of little feet running down the hall. The bedroom door swung open and my daughter Emma climbed onto the bed. "Mommy, wake up," she giggled. "I'm hungry." I forced a smile. "Okay, baby. Let's go make breakfast." She grabbed my hand, pulling me out of bed, her innocence a stark contrast to the storm raging inside me. As I walked into the kitchen, I saw Ethan sitting at the table, his face buried in his hands. He looked up as I entered, hope flickering in his eyes. But I didn't meet his gaze. I focused on Emma, on the act of making pancakes, on anything but the man sitting in front of me. Because deep down, I knew the truth. This wasn't something I could just move past. This wasn't something I could forgive. And for the first time since I had learned the truth, I started to accept what that really meant. Our relationship was over. The smell of pancakes filled the kitchen, but I barely tasted them. My mind was somewhere else, trapped between the life I had built and the reality I couldn't escape. Ethan sat silently across from me, pretending to sip his coffee, pretending things were normal. But nothing was normal anymore. After breakfast, he followed me into the living room. "Can we talk?" I sighed, glancing toward the hallway where Emma and our son, Noah, were playing. "Not here." We went upstairs to our bedroom, the door clicking shut behind us. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, looking like he hadn't slept. "I don't know what to say," he admitted. I crossed my arms. "Try the truth." He exhaled sharply. "I know I messed up. I know I should have told you. But Olivia, I love you. I love our kids. I never wanted to hurt you." I laughed bitterly. "You did hurt me. You took away my choice. You let me blame myself. And then you were going to marry me without ever telling me the truth." I was scared. "So was I," I shot back. "I was terrified when I found out. And I trusted you to help me through it. Do you have any idea how sick that is?" He rubbed his face. "I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to lose you. You lost me the moment you lied." His head snapped up. "No, don't say that." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Ethan, I don't think I can do this anymore." His breathing hitched. "You don't mean that." I did. And it broke me to say it. "I can't trust you," I whispered. "And I can't spend the rest of my life looking at you and wondering what else you've lied about." Tears welled in his eyes. "Olivia, please." I shook my head. "I need space. I need to think." His expression twisted in pain, but he nodded. "Just don't give up on us yet." I didn't answer. Because deep down, I already knew. I wasn't sure there was enough left to save. I packed a bag that night, not everything, just enough for a few days. I didn't tell the kids why, just kissed them goodnight and told them I'd see them soon. Mia was waiting for me outside. Ethan stood in the doorway as I walked toward the car. "This doesn't have to be the end." I paused, looking at him, really looking at him. The man I had loved for years. The father of my children. The person I had planned to spend forever with. And then I thought about the lies. The betrayal. The way he had stolen my ability to choose. Maybe love had once been enough, but not anymore. "This isn't a break, Ethan," I said quietly. "It's over." He flinched like I had hit him. But I didn't wait for a response. I climbed into the car and shut the door. Mia pulled out of the driveway, and I watched as our house, got smaller in the rearview mirror. I didn't know what the future held. But for the first time in a long time, it was mine to decide. The first few weeks were hell. I screamed, I doubted myself. I thought about going back, about forgiving him, about pretending everything was fine for the sake of our kids. But every time I looked in the mirror, I remembered the truth. He had taken something from me that I could never get back. And I deserved better. I focused on my children, on work, on therapy. Some days were easier than others. Some days I still felt the weight of what had happened pressing down on me. But I was healing. One night, months later, I got a message from Ethan. "Ethan, I still love you. I'll always love you." I stared at the screen for a long time before typing a response. "Me. I loved you too. But love isn't enough." And then, for the first time since it all began, I blocked his number. It was time to move forward. On my own terms.